when you found Miss Agee, whom you believe to be your daughter, on Facebook.
I wanted to know how I got freckles and y'all don't got freckles.
Did you consider yourselves boyfriend and girlfriend?
I mean,
Yes.
after 10 years of us being together and not using condoms or any kind of protection, why did I get pregnant?
Why wouldn't you be there to conceive that child?
I probably got home on a leave or something like that. I left on leave. I don't know exactly.
Miss Agee admits she's adamant that Mr. Fritz isn't her biological father and tells the court why.
Well, first off, Your Honor, he's not on my birth certificate. The guy that's on my birth certificate was not my biological father. He was married to my mother when I was born, but I do know who my biological father is. I was about 8 or 9 years old. I started asking questions about who my real father was, and my grandmother was the one who raised me. She told me my biological father was Buster. That's the only person she knew as my biological father. About 11 years old, I was sitting in the living room floor, watching cartoons. A knock come on the door. I went to the door, and it was Buster. At the time, I didn't know it was my father. He asked me, was that Angel? I was like, yes. He was like, is your grandmother at home? I said, yes, she's asleep right now. Later on that afternoon, he come by like 3 times. I had went swimming for the day. So the last time that I was at home, he come by, and I met him. I spent a couple hours with him. He told me he was my dad. You know, he was excited to see me. He was going to be in my life. Well, I didn't see him after that. I think I was 11 years old. He called, and he wanted to be in my life.
She also tells the court how she searched for her supposed biological father and how long it has been.
I did. I was 17 when I had my first child. I got married, and I was pregnant with my second child when I was 18. And I wanted to look for him because I was going to let him know that he has a daughter out here that, you know, have one grandbaby, and he's going to have another grandbaby. And I just wanted him to be a part of my my kid's life. I wanted a relationship with my dad. I wanted my kids to know their grandfather. You know, I wanted that in my life. We went to his house, his sister's house, talked with her. I got pictures of him, you know, but she said that if he's my dad, he will contact me. And I haven't heard from him since, and I'm 35.
Miss Agee then argues with Mr. Fritz, who claims he's her real father.
You say you're my dad, but if you're my dad, then you would have come looking for me. You say you come looking for me, but obviously you didn't come looking for me because I live in Thomasville, a little town that you can find me. You found me when I was already married under my married name. You didn't find me under my maiden name. My maiden name, you couldn't find me. I live in a small town. I can go in the middle of the town and scream out Danny Fritz, and they're gonna hear me. You didn't come looking for me, because if you did, you would have found me.
I looked for you for 30 years, Angel.
If you did, you would have found me.
Mr. Fritz explains why he's sure Miss Agee is his daughter, and he provides evidence.
I got sentenced and incarcerated, and when I was being moved from one camp to another, I met a friend of mine. I said, hey, man, when you get back in town, would you run by and let Angel's family know that I've been transferred and where I was going to come see me. After 3 months, I escaped from the penitentiary to go see my daughter, and at 2 months old, I went and seen my daughter. And
I don't remember that. I don't remember any of that.
You might remember these pictures right here.
What are those pictures of, sir?
That's a picture of Angel sitting on my father's lap and a picture of her sitting with my mother and father when she was
May I see those pictures?
2 years old.
He also tells the judge how he searched for his daughter and her family when they suddenly disappeared.
I went down there to find her. When I got there, the trailer was empty where she lived at, okay? So I went to the neighbor's house. They said, yeah, they moved, but they didn't know where. I went to all the neighbors' house, and no one knew where they had moved to.
If you want to find your daughter, you will not stop. I don't care what anybody says. If my kids are out there and I want to find my kids, I'm going to find them, regardless.
I didn't stop.
Regardless, I'm going to find them.
What was your next move?
Very next move, I went to the courthouse. I went to the courthouse, started searching records. I looked under her family's name. I looked under the name that I knew she was carrying, which was Dial. I looked under that name, and there was nothing in the court records. When I went up there and couldn't find you through your court records and stuff, I went back to the house, I regrouped. Every time I went to visit my family, and that where she lives at, when I went to find them, we would go and look for you.
Judge Lauren notices how angry Miss Agee is and asks her to explain why, and this happens.
I'm angry because he says he is my dad. If he is my dad, why wasn't you there? I needed a dad when I was younger. I'm 35 years old now. I've lived my life. I'm living my kid, I'm with my kids now. I'm living my life for my kids. And then he wants to pop up 35 years later and say he's my dad?
The anger that you feel, it's almost counterintuitive. It's I know this man is not my father because I know who my father is.
But then I have a gentleman telling me that he is my father. If he's my dad, why wasn't he there? Why didn't he look for me hard enough to find me? When a guy that's supposed to be my biological dad found me.
Well, Miss Agee finally reveals her true feelings to the court.
Exactly, you're right. I've been hurt. I've been hurt by the guy that said he's
There
my dad.
we go.
I didn't have a mom in my life, and I didn't have a dad. My grandmother raised me. She passed away when I was 16. I've been on my own ever since, and I've made it in this world.
And the DNA result resolves this case with this reveal. And here's a precious moment.
It has been determined by this court.
I am her
Mr.
daddy.
Fritz, you are her father.
Yes!
That's what I'm talking about. I love you so much, baby. I'm so sorry.
You can't be that mean and not be my youngin'.
I love you so much, baby girl.
Mr. Brooks shares with the court that the boy whose paternity is in question is the son whom he has been estranged from since the baby was a year old.
The day he was born, I took her to the hospital. I drove her to the hospital. I was there. I watched him cut her open. I watched him pull my baby out. I watched him cry. They couldn't get him quiet. I told the doctors and the nurse, give me my baby. And I said, E-man, this daddy. I'm here, baby. And he shot up. And that ran, I knew.
Mr. Brooks tells the court why he has no doubt that the child is his and gives evidence.
When she told you she was pregnant, there was no doubt in your mind that you were the father?
No. It was one of the greatest days of my life when she told me she was pregnant. And I just wanted to be a great father. And I got pictures.
Let me see those pictures, please, sir. Jerome,
I've been having these pictures with me for 17 years. She don't have none. Matter of fact, I got about 60 pictures, and she's not in none of them.
These are pictures you've carried for 17 years,
Yes.
believing that you are Mr. McDonald's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
And here come the dramatic revelations.
Because she called me, told me, get the kids out the house. I said, for what? I said, they finna go to my cousin anyway. I took the kids down to my cousin, and that thing, 3 police cars pulled up and defects. They told me they come to get the kids. You're not getting my kids.
They came and got the kids in the first place because Mr. Brooks is the one that called defects on me because he wanted to take my kids.
That's my family.
He
Why am I break my own family up
wanted to take
for?
my kids away from me. That's why defects was called. And I know this for a fact
Renee.
because the lawyer that was representing my case told me.
I ain't calling them defects.
His other family member called defects.
Well, why you want to blame me? I don't call.
I'm not blaming you. I'm stating a fact.
You the one who was out there in the street, not me. I'm home taking care of the kids, paying the bills. What you out there doing?
When did you pay a bill?
When did you have a job?
And more revelations.
He would not legitimize my child because, see, that's why I don't think he's the father. If he was the father, my mother was willing to pay for him to legitimize my son, then why didn't he do it? Because he was scared of that DNA test because he is not the dad.
I did the paperwork myself. I went and paid for it.
Okay, well, why is he not legitimized?
The day they came and got him, this is the day I took the picture. This is the last day.
So this is a picture of the exact day your son was taken from you.
January 23rd. And she wasn't nowhere to be found. She'd been gone for like 3 days.
I was in jail, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks also discloses the last time he saw his son with pictorial evidence of the exact day.
2 of them grabbed me on each side of my arm, and the other one grabbed the baby from me. And I struggled with them, but they slammed me to the car, but they didn't arrest me. And that was the last time I seen him.
Miss Agee then reveals this to the court.
He claims my daughter, that's not his child. He claims someone else's daughter, that's not his child. He claims my grandson, he even takes care of my grandson, and I give him that. He is an excellent person. But you know what? Truth be told, after 10 years of us being together and not using condoms or any kind of protection, why did I get pregnant?
So are you saying you don't believe Mr. Brooks can even father a child?
I don't think so, no.
Mr. McDonald, whose paternity is in question, is brought to the court, and he tells his part in this case.
Do you believe Mr. Brooks is your father?
Yes, ma'am.
You do? That's been your understanding your whole life?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What was it like when you were finally reunited with your mother?
It was kind of nervous at the beginning, but as we sat down and talked during the visit, it kind of got like, okay, and then we just started talking ever since then.
She stood in this courtroom today and mentioned that another man, not Mr. Brooks, another man could potentially be your biological father. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, ma'am.
The DNA test results.
Mr. Brooks, you are his father.
All right!
And the beautiful moment between father and son.
Look at my boy. This is my boy.
Feels good, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Lewis says she had her world ripped out from her at age 13 when this happened.
By him.
Explain, how did that happen?
We were at his place of business, going about our day one day. And
How old were you?
I believe I was about 13.
Okay. Take me back to that day. I know it's difficult.
He brought all of us together and said he wanted to tell us something, and he wanted me to know that I wasn't his daughter.
And he said that in front of other siblings?
Yes, Your Honor.
How were you processing this at 13 years old?
I didn't. He took me around to talk with my grandmother. She basically was sort of like saying that he was a little unsure, but she felt like I was his daughter.
Mr. Palmer tells the court the event from his perspective.
Because I knew all the time she wasn't my daughter, and I just thought it was just time to tell her.
When you say you knew all the time,
Yes, ma'am.
so you were just raising her, why? To be kind?
I had another daughter by her mother, and so I wouldn't do anything for my other daughter that I wouldn't do for her.
And here are some confessions of what led to the paternity doubt.
Well, we was inseparable at first. We was gonna get married, but all my friends were saying I'm a fool, that for me to think that Margaret Ann was my daughter, that she was going with another guy. She had another friend.
She told me that she wanted to go see her mother, which was supposedly had been in a coma and dying, and she wanted to go see her. Mr. Palmer wouldn't take her, so she had her other friend take her. But she said at that time she was already pregnant with me. I think she was like 4 months.
I drove by there one day and I saw her out there. He had a '59 Ford, pink and white. I never will forget that. I was in love with her.
What happened with the Ford, the car? What you said you were...
That was her boyfriend's car.
That was the boyfriend's car.
It was in there driving.
Was she in the car when you saw her?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you see?
She laid down, her leg was sticking out the side of the car.
Miss Lewis shares with the court how the situation progressed after she receives the shocking news.
When he told me I didn't come back for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years. I think when I came back, I was, 17 when I came back?
Yeah, okay.
So for 3 or 4 summers, you just wouldn't go back?
No, ma'am.
To the farm, because you remember him saying, you're not my child.
Mm-hmm.
And even though your grandmother tried to reassure you, in your heart, what did you feel? You felt rejected?
Yes.
But
yes,
did you still feel like he was your biological father?
Yes, I did. I look just like him. To me, I'm his twin. Those ears, that nose, that chin. My grandmother told me there's no other way. When she seen him, she seen my mother. And even when I stayed away, my grandmother, she would call, and she called me a couple of times and spoke with me and told me to come back.
Mr. Palmer explains his doubt and backs it up with evidence.
I was in service at the time, Your Honor.
You were in the service at the time?
There's no way I could have. To me, I couldn't get the timing together.
So the timing. So you're talking about the window of time that Ms. Lewis would have been conceived.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't feel it adds up.
That's right, Your Honor.
Did you bring any proof of that?
Over here, Your Honor, right here.
I'd like to see it.
From the time I left for war in May 1968.
Let me follow along with you. So this is your timeline. You say you left to go to war
in May of '68.
May of '68. Let me first say thank you for your service. Then you say you returned 9 or 10 months later, and then Ms. Lewis was born September 6, 1969.
Yes. Yeah, I was drafted to Vietnam in May of '68, and she was born.
All this doesn't matter, as the paternity test results determines the truth.
Mr. Palmer, you are her father.
Here are more revelations as daughter and father get reunited.
I told you. Now, don't you say that to me no more. We got them papers.
Okay.
We needed that.
Yes, we did.
In Your Honor, if I may, I really believe this came from and stemmed from him not knowing who his father is. And he took it out on me.
Ms. Curtis says to the court how she discovered that the father she had known all along isn't her biological father and how she feels about it.
About 13.
Okay. Take me back to that day. I know it's difficult.
He brought all of us together and said he wanted to tell us something, and he wanted me to know that I wasn't his daughter.
And he said that in front of other siblings?
Yes, Your Honor.
How are you processing this at 13 years old?
I didn't. He took me around to talk with my grandmother. She basically was sort of like saying that he was a little unsure, but she felt like
Her mother, Miss Hall, tells the court her version of the story.
I was his daughter.
So your grandmother tried to reassure you?
Yes.
The man you believe to be your biological father just basically came out and said one day, I'm not your father.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're about 13 years old. And up until this point, you were daddy's little girl.
Yes. We started going to visit him every summer up until the one summer when I was told that he wasn't my dad. We had about maybe 2 or 3 summers before he said it.
That you would spend together.
Yes.
And do things daddies and daughters do and hanging out with your dad, and you had no idea.
No.
Mr. Palmer, do you remember this day that she says you gathered everybody up?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why would you gather everybody up and tell her she's not your biological daughter?
Because I knew all the time she wasn't my daughter, and I just thought it was just time to tell her.
When you say you knew all the time,
Yes, ma'am.
so you were just raising her, why? To be kind?
I had another daughter by her mother, and so I wouldn't do anything.
Miss Curtis shares what went down when she confronted her mother about what she found.
She told me that she wanted to go see her mother, which was supposedly had been in a coma and dying, and she wanted to go see her. Mr. Palmer wouldn't take her, so she had her other friend take her. But she said at that time, she was already pregnant with me. I think she was like 4 months.
I drove by there one day and I saw her out there. He had a '59 Ford, pink and white. I never forget that. I was in love with her.
What happened with the Ford, the car? What you said you were...
That was her boyfriend's car.
That was the boyfriend's car.
Mother and daughter are saying 2 different things and the tension is getting high.
Yes, ma'am.
But what Ms. Lewis is saying is her mother admitted to that I did ask this man to take me because I wanted to go see my mother because she was dying, but I was already pregnant with Miss Lewis, with Margaret, before that happened. But what you thought in that moment was she was sleeping with this other gentleman as well.
Yes, Your Honor.
And I can see how deeply this hurts you.
Yeah, because as I told him when he told me that he wasn't my dad, I said, well, if I'm not your daughter, why would you continue to raise me as yours? Because my mom didn't ask you to.
And then more disclosures.
And you're told that he's not your biological father. Where does it go from there?
When he told me I didn't come back. I didn't come back for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years. I think when I came back, I was, 17 when I came back?
Yeah, okay.
So for 3 or 4 summers, you just wouldn't go back?
No, ma'am.
To the farm because you remember him saying, you're not my child.
Mm-hmm.
And even though your grandmother tried to reassure you, in your heart, what did you feel? You felt rejected?
Yes.
But did you still feel like he was your biological father?
Yes, I did. I look just like him. To me, I'm his twin. Those ears, that nose, that chin. My grandmother told me there's no other way.
Miss Curtis also confesses to this.
Of her. You seem very matter-of-fact about it. Why are you so sure? If you were with her mother, and you admit that, you were very much in love with this woman.
I was in service at the time, Your Honor.
You were in the service at the time?
There's no way I could have, to me, I couldn't get the timing together.
So you're the timing, so you're talking about the window of time that Ms. Lewis would have been conceived.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't
Mr. Whitaker, the potential biological father, comes to the court and spills his part in the case.
conceive that child, and you don't dispute it. Why are you disputing that you could have conceived along with her mother, Ms. Lewis?
Because we didn't have no relationship at that time.
Oh, you were saying that you were not in a relationship and you were not having sex or sleeping with or intimate with Ms. Lewis's mom during that window of time.
That's right, Your Honor.
He know he's my father. I know he's my father.
You've lived your entire life with him basically denying you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
What has he missed?
He missed out on a whole lot. He missed out on my graduations. I wanted my daddy to walk me down the aisle when I got married. He wasn't there for that. I have 5 girls and 1 son.
And finally, the DNA test result reveals.
Again, to another generation, her children, because they almost didn't have a relationship with you. But for her unconditional love, even through your denial, you wouldn't have known those grandchildren. So I think this is a beautiful day for so many reasons, because you get the validation you need, but more importantly, you get the opportunity to break a curse.
Mr. Garcia explains to the court what transpired a year ago when he met Miss Ames, his supposed daughter.
And a year ago, I was in Jersey visiting my family, and I was really looking for her on Facebook, wanting to find her so we can reconnect. Because I always called and always asked about her, and I was really looking for a heavy. We found each other on Facebook last year, and we met at my mother's house and reunited, and we started talking from there.
Miss Ames shares her version of the story with the court.
My mother died when I was 13 years old. Never told me that there was a possibility of another man being my father whatsoever. When I was 21 years old, another relative of mine decided to tell me, well, there's a possibility that your dad isn't your dad, that another man is your father. So the name that they gave me, I searched for years. I couldn't find him. Well, come to find out, they had gave me the wrong name. So when he friend requested, I looked at his picture and I felt the instant connection because I looked just like Mr. Garcia. I looked just like his family. And so I sent him a friend request. And when I did, he says, do you know who I am? And I'm like, I've heard that there's a possibility you're my dad. And he's like, I want to meet you. I'm here. I'm in New Jersey. And so we met.
She also says what went down when she met Mr. Garcia.
There was an instant connection between the two of us. Instantly. And we went out to my mother's graveyard because he didn't know anything of my mother passing because he was so far away. And he was supposed to go back to Florida. And he stayed an extra 2 weeks because he wanted to meet my daughter. I'm torn. Like, I have 2 kids. And I want my kids to know who their grandparents are. My mother's not around. Like, I don't want my kids growing up accidentally dating their family members because we don't know the truth.
And this is what Mr. Patton, the father who raised Miss Ames, says, plus evidence.
You feel like you're 100% certain you're her father.
Yes, I was there for her at birth. When she was born, I used to rock her to sleep in my knees. I stayed with her family. I stayed with her family, her grandmother. I stayed with them for like 10 years. Working, and taking care of my responsibility, which was her.
And so you were there at her birth?
Yes.
And you've paid child support for her as well?
Yes.
You were responsible for child support for how many years?
18.
18 years you paid it?
Yes.
And you submitted to the court that you've paid your entire child support debt off?
Yes, I have the documentation.
It's paid in full?
Yes, I have it right here, Your Honor.
I'd like to see that. Mr. John Patton, state of New Jersey, paid. No open cases. More than $40,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Ames then reveals this about Mr. Patton.
But I remember when I was younger and we got into an argument and he made a statement to me to go find my real dad. So that statement, well, maybe there's a reason why he said this to me.
Miss Ames also adds this to her doubt.
Like just the freckle things. I used to ask that when I was a kid. Where did I get freckles from? My mom ain't got no freckles. My dad ain't got no freckles. How did I get freckles on my face? I was a little kid. I wanted to know how I got freckles and y'all don't got freckles.
The paternity test result reveals.
It has been determined by this court. Her biological father is Mr. Garcia.
And this happens.
I'm still her father, and I'm always going to be her father.
That's my thing. I don't want him to walk out of my life because of these results.
I don't think you have that to worry about at all. Would you like to go down and give your dads a hug? You got to. Look at her.
Baby.
My dad. You always be my dad.